Hi everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and I'm here today with the Flavor of the Month card kit by Scrapping for Less. November's theme is a vintage Christmas. This is for November 2019, and this just has some really adorable stamp sets that are included with this. So let's get into making these 5 cards. So my first card is going to be the sneak peek that I had showed you during the week. And I started out by stamping the image. Now I cut these out after I stamped both the sentiment and the image itself. And then I went in and I colored the image. And it shows you there the colors that I used in Copic markers. And then when I cut it out, I used some square nesting dies, and I cut the Santa out at about 2 7/8 on the square, and then I used a crocodile to crop the corners of it. Then I used the next size nesting die, which was about 3 5/8, or no, I'm sorry, 3 3/8, and that's what I use to kind of put the layer, or to layer those on. And then I did the same with the sentiment. So I used the sentiment from the stamp set, Believe in Magic, and I just cut a rectangle out that was the same size as the width of the square, and that is approximately 5/8 of an inch. And then I did the same thing for the shadow, or the layer out there. And then I layered all of that up, and then I used the enamel dots from the kit. So what was part of this collection, which this was collection number 3, it was called Santa, and it included Santa paper by Scrapping for Less, Jolly Santa stamp set by Your Next Stamp, decoupage paper by Craft Consortium, ephemera by Ruby Rocket, and then enamel dots by Gina Marie Designs. So that was everything that was included with this collection. So you also received cardstock. You receive 100-pound high-quality colored cardstock. You received 1 sheet of black licorice, 1 sheet of craft, whipped cream, insulation pink, grout gray, sour apple limeade, or jelly bean green. So you got one of those 3 different green colors included in the kit. And then you also received 2 sheets of Neenah 110-pound Classic Crest Smooth Solar White, and 4 A2 sized white envelopes. So like I said, I used the crocodile for all those. This is an A2 size card. I cut down all of my cardstock to A2 size cards. I do end up making a 5.5-inch square card, but all of the cardstock that came with the kit I cut down either for card bases, and then the Neenah Solar White I cut down to use for stamping, and also to use for the square card. I cut a 8.5 by 11-inch piece of the Neenah Solar White. I cut the 8.5-inch down to 5.5 inches, and then I scored it in the center at 5.5, so the long way for the 11 inches, and then that's how I created the square card that you'll see in a little bit. So with this one, I did use some vintage photo distress oxide around the edges to make it look a little more vintage of the Santa image stamped square, and then also the sentiment. And then I did pop this up with some foam tape, so that gives it a little bit of dimension. I absolutely love this stamp. The Santa is just so stinking cute. Now with the banana split level, you also receive extra products. You receive the Noel ornament die by Scrapping for Less, Christmas Bell and Christmas Saying stamp set by Scrapping for Less, Tim Holtz Distress Crayon in Peeled Paint or Festive Berries. I received Peeled Paint. And then a Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor Cardstock. So if you receive the Banana Split level, you will also receive that. I did end up using some Spectrum Noir Sparkle Pen all around the Santa's hat and his little ball there, and then the holly berries. And that was it for that card. For my second card, I am using Collection 1. A couple other things I did take from other collections with different things, but for this particular card, I used the Victorian stamp set by Sunny Studio Stamps. I stamped that with Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I am going to cut that out of, or into a kind of rectangle that is about 2.5 inches by about 3 inches. Now this is going to be the square card. The first layer is 5.5 inch square. Then on top of that layer is about 4.25 inches square. That is the red that I cut there. And then the strip that goes down is 1 3/4 and by 5.5 inches. So I color this image with Copic markers, and I had put that in there so you can see that. As part of, Collection 1, Holly Berries, you received Holly Berries paper by Scrapping for Less, Victorian Christmas stamp set by Sunny Studios, the green fiber vine by Decora, red crochet thread, and buttons. Now for this one, I do end up using the green fiber fine by Decora, and I kind of put that down the long panel that goes vertically up and down the card, and then I used buttons over in the corner next to it. And I also took some Distress ink and just put that all around in Vintage Photo to give it a little more of a vintage look. So I hit the button wrong, so I didn't get this, but that was the finished card. And then I'm going to jump into my next card. My next card, I am using Collection number 2 of Vintage Christmas, and that includes a Vintage Christmas paper by Scrapping for Less, Christmas Post Stamp Set by LDRS, and that is absolutely the most adorable stamp. I did not use it this time. I know you saw it for the sneak peeks because I know Kimberly did. Her card was made with that, and it was absolutely adorable. But for this one, I just cut out the images, and it included in one of the other sets some Frosty Ornaments gold stickers by Find It Trading from Collection number 4, and I decided to use those as this. I heat embossed a sentiment in gold on the top and the bottom, one from the Believe in the Magic from the from the Your Next stamp set, and then one also from the sentiment stamp that says Good Tidings from the Banana Split level on the bottom. And then I just kind of lined up those bells. So the card is an A2 size card. The first top or bottom panel is 4 inches by 5.25, and then I cut another piece that was just about 2 1/8 inch, and then another strip that was 1/2 inch, and that is what I layered up. Those are that size by the 4.25 inches, so it goes across the entire card even though the bottom layer is only 4 inches. And then that square on top that I cut out of the green cardstock was about 2 1/8 inch square, and that's what I put all over there. I did pop this up as well to give it a little bit of dimension after I did the embossing and putting on the stickers, the gold stickers, and then I also used the enamel dots from Collection number 3, the Your Next stamp. Now my next card, after I finish up this one, I used the Noel die from the Banana Split level, and I just colored the die. I had cut it out of white cardstock there, and I just colored it with a Copic marker. I colored it with BG72. It really matched up well with the blue cardstock that it, or pattern paper that is in this collection. The pattern paper is Santa paper by Scrapping for Less, and then that was what the same collection that I used to create my sneak peek card. But anyway, so I colored that, and then I did go over it with the not Wink Estella, the Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, just to give the entire thing some sparkle. And then on the top, I put the gold sparkle pen because I just wanted that top to have a little bit of gold in there, even though over the blue it ended up turning kind of a greenish color. I also ended up using the blackboard labels by Trimcraft from this collection to have the sentiment Happy Christmas. I used the peace sentiment that I heat embossed with white embossing powder from the Banana Split Level the Bell and Saying stamp by Scrapping for Less. And that sentiment I just cut out from a piece of black cardstock that I had. That's just a scrap that I had there. And I cut that out at a 1/2 inch by about 3/4 of an inch. And then the back card, the card base I used was black. And I used pattern paper. The back panel for the pattern paper I originally cut at 5.5 by 4.25 inches, and then I used some scissors that I had, the scissors that have the edges on them, and that's what I cut the edges with. I didn't feel like finding a die to create that edge, and I just thought those were cute. And then I just glued that or adhered that onto the back or the card base itself. And then the piece that is kind of sticking out that's black, and that piece sentiment strip is the same piece of black scrap cardstock that I had laying around. The next panel going upwards, that was the red with the ornaments, is 3.5 inches by 4.25 inches, and then I just adhered the Noel die cut down to or on top of that pattern paper, and then, like I said, finished it off with that. I did use the Spectrum Noir sparkle pen on all of the black, so including the bottom where the black card base peeks out, and then the little black piece that peeks out on top, as well as I had used a lot of the sparkle pen on the ornament itself, the Noel ornament. And that is pretty much it for that card. Now my final card, I am using collection number 4, an ornamental Christmas that includes an ornamental Christmas paper by Scrapping for Less, an ornamental Christmas stamp set by Scrapping for Less, frosty ornaments, gold stickers by Find It Trading, strand of pearls trimming, and sequence by Scrapping for Less. So I decide on my paper, and for all of these cards I'm just using the sketches that are provided by Scrapping for Less, so I just pretty much followed all of them. But for this one, I cut out, or the card base I used was I would say it was probably the jelly bean green or the limeade, and that's what I used for my card base. I also took some of the buttons out from collection 1 to use on this card. And then I cut down the back panel to 4 inches by 5.25. The next panel moving up is, or the next 2 panels, I guess you want to say, are 1.5 inches wide by 3.5 inches long, and then those layer up on the bottom, or on top of the bottom panel. And then the square with the ornament is a 2.5-inch square. I used the Distress Vintage Photo Distress Oxide to edge the square with the ornament on it as well. I used Spectrum Noir Sparkle Pen all over this ornament after I finished coloring this. And this is actually funny because we had these exact ornaments when I was a kid growing up that were the different colors for that inside, and it was kind of sunken in when on these ornaments, because we had a whole set of them when I was a kid, and I think I actually still have a couple of them. I haven't got my Christmas stuff out yet this year, but when I do, I'm going to have to look to see if I still have those ornaments. Then, like I said, once I finished up the coloring, I just adhered everything down following the sketch, and then I did create a sentiment strip that was a 1/2 inch by about 2.5 inches, and I used Good Tidings from the Scrapping for Less sentiment stamp set in the banana split level. And then I used the buttons, like I said, from collection 1, as well as the red crochet thread. So that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for stopping by. Everybody take care.